Thank you very much. The bluest eyes that I have ever seen were puddled with tears when my wife told me that I had to step up. Step up, Lori said, and connect with your son. Bond with your son. Step up and get him out in the world. Force him to do things that he always found uncomfortable. Actually, things that we had just found out were unnatural. Things like shaking hands and looking people in the eyes, having a conversation. You see, we had just found out that Tyler had Asperger's syndrome, that Tyler had autism, something I knew nothing about. We had just walked out of the doctor's office, and the doctor had given us several symptoms. One of them of which was that he's clumsy, that he has poor hand-eye coordination, that he has a hard time with dexterity with his hands and his feet. And I remember asking her, without thinking about the consequences of the question, is that why, doctor, he's so bad at sports? And the doctor and my wife exchanged disappointing glances. And the doctor said, yeah, Ron, that's why he's so bad at sports. It's also probably why he doesn't like sports. At that moment, I got that red flush of hot shame that you guys have probably felt in your life, whether you're a parent or not. When I realized that I was letting my boy down, when I realized that I'm forcing him into sports, not because I wanted him to live out my fantasies, like a lot of dads do, but honestly because it was the only way I knew how to connect with him. My beloved father was a jock. I loved playing sports. That's how we connected. We were the field of dreams cliche. I didn't know how else to connect with my son. But in that moment, as we were sitting in the parking lot with my wife's eyes filled with tears, and if I could be honest with you, with my eyes filled with tears, Lori knew how I could connect with him. She said, here's what you're going to do, bud. You're going to get out on the road with your son. You're going to spend more time with him. You're going to go to presidential sites all over this country, libraries and historical sites. Why? Well, one, because U.S. history is one of Tyler's obsessions. Obsession, that was a word we heard for the first time in association with my son in that meeting. But it was one of his hobbies. Two, because the presidency, me covering the White House for years, the presidency was what took me away from Lori and our three kids, Tyler being the youngest. Tyler, by the way, at the time being 12 years old. So off we went on these trips, spent about a year. Lori called them road trips, I called them guilt trips. The first one was to the White House. Coincidentally, a couple months after the diagnosis, we got an invitation from Barack Obama's White House to come to the White House Christmas party. It's something presidents do every year for the press corps. Usually I take my wife. This year she said, you take Tyler. So imagine, if you would, myself and my 12-year-old son in the east wing of the White House, beneath the chandeliers and on a red carpet, in a long line of people waiting to have our hands shaked and our pictures taken with the First Lady and the President. This long line of stuffy political columnists and blow-dried anchors. And Tyler, my precious little boy, practicing what comes easy to the rest of us. Hello, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. President, with that deep baritone Aspie's voice. Hello, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. President. For 45 minutes. Hello, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. President. We finally get to the front of the line, and the couple in front of us is being introduced by a Marine Guard in the beautiful sound system and the music system, very formal, being introduced to the President and First Lady. We're next. Tyler looks up at me with the second most beautiful set of eyes I've ever seen and says, I hope I don't let you down, Dad. Yeah, that's the right reaction. That's exactly how I felt. What kind of father makes the son feel like he's going to let him down? I wanted to say, buddy, there's nothing you can do that'll make me feel bad. There's nothing you can do that I won't be proud of. There's nothing you can do that would let me down, but I couldn't say that. I was afraid that he would embarrass himself because he's different. Actually, to be honest, I was afraid he would embarrass me. So what happened next? They call our names. I walk up first. I shake the president's hand. Barack Obama asks me about my basketball game. We've played basketball together before. He knows my game sucks. I'm looking out of the corner of my eye, and there's my son, my little Aspie, holding out his arms to the First Lady, who wraps him in the biggest, most beautiful hug you'd ever want to see after brushing away his hair. And as we turn around to have this picture taken, I'm thinking to myself, you know, he's not the problem. Tyler's not the problem. Asperger's isn't the problem. I'm the problem. A couple weeks later, we went to the Quincy Adams estates, the John Adams and Quincy Adams estates just outside of Boston. You want to see an interesting father-son relationship, study these two. But anyhow, Tyler dominated the tour. It was 35 or 40 adults and Tyler, and a park ranger who was trying to keep up with this boy's brilliant mind. Every question the park ranger had, Tyler answered before anybody else could. At one point, the park ranger says, "This is the Salt House. This is the house that John Quincy Adams was born in." And Tyler says, when he was my age, at this time Tyler was 13, when he was 13 years old, is this exactly how the place looked like? And the park ranger said, "Yeah, this is an exact replica." And Tyler says, "Exact replica? That's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as that." No, he said it's an authentic replication. He says it can't be that. So I turn to him while everybody else is laughing like that. I say, "Hey, shh. Let somebody else speak, buddy." And we go on to the next house. There's 3 houses on the estate. And at the next house, we're standing in line to go in with the same group of adults. And this old lady, I'll never forget her, standing in front of me, old enough and sick enough, she can barely turn around. It hurts her to turn around. And she says, "Where's that little boy? Where's that precious little boy who was asking those smart questions?" And I kind of, he's here. And she said, "Did you shush him?" Yes, ma'am, I did. And I realized then, one of the many lessons I learned on these road trips was I've got to start looking at my son through the eyes of other people instead of through my eyes. I'm not seeing him right. I'm seeing a quirky little boy who's embarrassing himself, and worst of all of me, she's seeing a bright, big-hearted, precocious, guileless young man. I need to see that. So I won't go through all the trips, but we did a bunch of them. I thought I'm done. I come back home with Lori after, doing our 8th or 9th trip, and I said, "Okay, I think I've done this." She says, "Nice job, way to go, but you got one more thing. I need you to see if Bill Clinton and George Bush will meet with Tyler." Now, Ginny Terzano might be out here who worked for Bill Clinton. She would tell you that there's no way Bill Clinton's going to meet with me. I wrote him really hard. There's no way George Bush is going to meet with me. I wrote him hard with Iraq and Katrina. These guys didn't like me as a reporter, but I'll try. Well, these men are public servants. They had nothing to gain from it. But believe it or not, within a month, I'm in the penthouse suite of Bill Clinton's library, bringing my son to meet Bill Clinton. Gracious, gracious man. I could tell you a lot of stories about him, but let me just boil down to one. He starts out the conversation, just Tyler and the president. And the president says, "I'm told by my staff that Teddy Roosevelt is your favorite president. He was my favorite president, too." And then off Bill Clinton goes. If any of you have ever heard Bill Clinton talk about Teddy Roosevelt, it's 45 minutes of the bridge to the next century, income inequality, economic change, technological change, comparing himself to Teddy Roosevelt, comparing our times to their times. It was brilliant, and I'm taking notes, and as a journalist and a student of history, I'm just fascinated. I'm taking all kinds of notes, but I'm noticing that Tyler, he's kind of losing Tyler. Tyler wants to talk. He's an Aspie. He's a 13-year-old boy. And I realized that Clinton, first of all, he's obsessing about a topic. Bill Clinton's obsessing about a topic. Second of all, he's missing the social cues. And I swear to God, I write in my notebook, is Bill Clinton an Aspie? Now, I know this is on the record. I know Bill Clinton is not an Aspie. Matter of fact, that's the point of the story. Bill Clinton may be the best communicator of our times. Bill Clinton felt the country's pain. He didn't feel Tyler's pain. And if Bill Clinton, for as talented as he is, for as great of a communicator he is, for all the empathy he has, if he can miss social cues, why am I so obsessed, there's that word again, about my son's rough edges? On the way out, Bill Clinton's just a couple feet ahead of us, and we're walking out. And I turn to Tyler and I whisper, "What'd you think, buddy?" He says, "Well, that was kind of neat. He talks a lot about himself and his stuff." Swear to God. I said, "Kind of like you, eh, buddy?" He says, "Yeah." So Bill Clinton did connect with Tyler. 8 days later, we're in Dallas, in the office meeting President George W. Bush, and touring the warehouse that housed all the stuff that would eventually be in what is now his library. Completely different setting. George Bush just starts asking questions. What's your favorite school? What's your favorite topic? What do you do when you get home from school? He was like an oil drill, just drilling one sentence question after another. And Tyler's giving all one-word answers. And again, I got that familiar feeling. Uh-oh, he's embarrassing himself. Uh-oh, he's embarrassing me. And one of the questions was, "Do you like sports?" And Tyler says, "I don't like sports, Mr. President. I'm still tied up." So I try to change the subject. "Mr. President, what do you think of the Tigers this year?" And Bush gives me this great look, kind of like, "Did you not just hear your son?" The meeting goes great. Oh, at one point, he asked Tyler, what do you see in yourself in the future? And Tyler says, "I want to be a comedian." Now, folks, I had never heard that before. Bush tells this funny story that I won't tell you, but basically where he admitted that he had confused in the White House the difference between Bono, the rock star, and Sonny Bono. And he talked, Tyler, about the power of self-deprecating humor, that you want to make fun of yourself before other people make fun of you, which is kind of ironic coming from Bush. But what a powerful thing to tell a 13-year-old boy, right? Powerful thing, especially a 13-year-old boy who's been bullied for 10 of those 13 years. So on the way out, Bush grabs him by the shoulder. Tyler's just a few feet ahead of me, and he says, "He's a good kid, Fournier." And I think to myself, you're damn right, sir. I've spent a year with him. I've learned a lot of lessons. I know he's a good kid. And I thought back to the first time. Thank you very much. To the first time that Tyler met Bill Clinton. This is when Tyler was 5 years old. There's another tradition at the White House that when you leave the White House beat, you bring your family in to meet the president. It's been going on for many presidents. So that's my family meeting George Bush in 2003. And Tyler walks in, and all he can talk about is Barney the dog. And he's talking mile a minute like Aspies do with a deep voice. And he's talking not just about Barney, but about Fala, Roosevelt's dog. And Bush, I expected his eyes to glaze over. And again, I'm worried, is he embarrassing me? But Bush is charmed. And on the way out, this time Bush grabs my hand, one arm on the shoulder, looks me right in the eyes, like a presidential directive, and he says, "Love that boy." Right here, love that boy. And at that moment, I thought, he's right. I have to love my son despite his idiosyncrasies. But 10 years later, when I walked out of his office again, after spending this road on these guilt trips, I realized, no, that's not right. I'm not going to love him despite his idiosyncrasies. I love my boy because of his idiosyncrasies. Everything that everybody else might find as atypical about my son is what makes him so special. Big heart. The kid can't lie. He's smarter than his mom and dad combined. He's got a big heart, empathetic, a wonderful young boy because of his idiosyncrasies. So yes, and this is the lesson for all of you out here, whether you have a special needs child or a neurotypical child. I finally learned, it almost was too late, that you're right. I don't have the idealized son. The big jock that I wanted, my idealized son, I don't have. But thank God I have my ideal son. Thank you very much.